It's wild to think about how one storm, one catastrophic event, could totally change the destiny of a major city. Well, today we're digging into the absolutely incredible story of the Great Blizzard of 1888. This wasn't just a storm that buried New York. It actually forced it to rebuild itself and come back stronger than ever before. 400. That's the number to remember. Over 400 people lost their lives in just a couple of days. I mean, it's just a staggering number for a storm that basically appeared out of thin air. And for everyone who managed to survive, life just stopped. We're talking about the financial and cultural capital of the entire country, completely paralyzed and cut off from the rest of the world. So the big question is, how on earth did this happen? The winter of 1888 had actually been one of the warmest anyone could remember. So how does a perfectly pleasant March weekend spiral into a frozen nightmare? Let's get into it. Okay, so to really get just how shocking this storm was, we have to rewind a little bit to the days right before it hit. Because, New Yorkers were out there enjoying what felt like an early spring. Get this, to give you a real sense of the calm before the storm, on the evening of March 10th, it was 10 degrees Celsius. That's 50 degrees Fahrenheit. It honestly felt more like spring than the start of some historic blizzard. And that feeling of everything is fine just kept going. The next morning, a Sunday, was just another gray, rainy day. People were going about their business with absolutely no idea that the weather was about to declare war on their city. So, what went so horribly wrong? Well, the answer wasn't on the ground. It was happening miles up in the atmosphere. This wasn't just one storm, it was two, and they were about to collide with some serious force. The first clues that something was off started popping up on Sunday afternoon. The wind suddenly picked up. The rain started coming down harder, turning into intense thunderstorms, and the barometric pressure just started to nosedive. The atmosphere was getting really unstable really fast. And here's why. You had this huge mass of warm, wet air moving up from the Gulf of Mexico, and it just slammed head-on into a frigid, bone-dry air mass dropping down from the Arctic. It was literally the perfect recipe for a meteorological explosion. This collision was so violent, it created something that meteorologists call a winter hurricane. I mean, it had the power and the structure of a hurricane, but instead of rain, it was fueled by ice and snow. A truly rare and unbelievably destructive event. And here's the part that's just heartbreaking. The meteorologists down in Washington, D.C. could actually see this disaster brewing on their maps. But their warnings never got to New York. It was a Sunday, the local office was a ghost town, and the communication lines were already failing. The city was flying completely blind. As night fell, that's when the winter hurricane finally arrived. And it didn't just bring snow, it brought total chaos and darkness. The speed of it all, it was just terrifying. By evening, the winds were so strong they were literally flipping over carriages being pulled by 6 horses. Then, at midnight, the rain switched to this blinding wall of snow. By morning, the city had just disappeared. And the whole time, because of that communication breakdown, not one single official warning was ever issued. An entire city was caught totally, completely by surprise. For the next 2 days, New York wasn't really a city anymore. It was more like a frozen wasteland, and its citizens were trapped in this desperate fight to survive. Can you imagine waking up Monday morning, looking out your window, and just not recognizing the world? Snow was piled up to the 2nd floor of buildings, and the blizzard was still howling with hurricane-force winds. And the stories from the ground are just unbelievable. Commuters were stranded on the elevated trains for hours on end. Some were rescued by criminals who charged them money to climb down rickety ladders. Meanwhile, thousands of people who couldn't get home turned every office, hotel, and school into a giant makeshift shelter. And the death toll, it climbed in these really horrifying ways. People would just vanish into massive snowdrifts, their bodies not found for weeks. Others weren't even killed by the snow itself, but by these huge, heavy chunks of ice, called cornices, breaking off the tops of buildings and crashing down onto the street. But here's the craziest part of the whole story. Out of all that tragedy and destruction, something incredible happened. The blizzard didn't just destroy, it actually cleared a path to a better, more resilient future. You see, the storm's incredible power acted like a giant spotlight, and it lit up this huge, fatal flaw in the city's infrastructure. All of its communication, all of its transportation, it was all above ground, totally exposed. The storm basically snapped the nervous system of the entire Northeast. And the chain reaction that followed is what changed everything. It went like this. First, the storm rips down this insane jungle of overhead wires. So, the city makes a rule. From now on, all new cables have to be buried underground. And that new way of thinking, of building down instead of up, led directly to the most game-changing project of all, the New York City subway. So, in a way, the blizzard was this terrible trial by fire, or I guess trial by ice. But out of the ruins, a safer, a more modern, and a much more connected New York started to take shape. And that kind of leaves us with a big question for today. The Great Blizzard of 1888 revealed all the hidden vulnerabilities of its time. And it really makes you wonder, what critical flaws in our own modern cities are just sitting there, waiting for the next perfect storm to expose them?